Okay. Hello. Welcome. We are going to start in a couple minutes. Just going to give people some time to come in. And we are also, I'm in Virginia right now, if anyone's curious. This is not where I usually am. And okay. So I'm gonna give them till 3:05 and then we'll get started. How's everyone's week going? Anyone do something fun?
So far, so good here. Just kind of doing errands, running to my computer now. I called in while I would finish things off.
Oh, wow. Oh man, I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're totally fine. It was more me and my time management.
Oh, I feel that. I do that all the time. I'll be like, oh man, I have everything planned out so well, and then I'll be like, wait a second, aren't I forgetting something? And then I'll go run and do stuff. So yeah, I get that. That's funny. Hello, Nunez as well. We're giving people, I think, until 3:05, and then we'll get started. How was your week? Oh wait, they're still connecting. My bad. Okay. I'm having a one-sided conversation. I love it. Okay, there we go. Hello, welcome. We are giving people until 3:05 to start, and then we'll go ahead and get onto the writing prompts. So that's gonna be fun. How was your week? Oh, but also, I have to remember, if you don't want to be in the recording, you don't have to speak.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
How was your week?
Surprised it's already Sunday.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm loving the weather though.
How about everyone else?
Good. I'm really enjoying that we're having warm weather finally. So that has been a real comfort for me. When I was I think I mentioned this last week, but it keeps happening. So every time it happens, I'm like, la brisa. Every time I feel a nice breeze outside, I'm like, this is what we're talking about on our island. It feels so nice, Taylor, how was your week?
It was good. I have to get through my PTO for work.
What is that? I don't know what a PTO is.
Oh, paid time off.
Oh, okay.
And so vacation hours. And I have to get through that before June 30th. So this has been a 5-day weekend for me.
Wow.
So that's been really nice. I've been getting some things done. My ash tree, which in Indiana, it's illegal to plant new ash trees. So there are very few of them.
Is it because it's an invasive species or something?
No, there's a species of boring bug that kills them and then spreads to other trees from there.
Wow. Oh, interesting.
But I think this was planted before that law went into place, so I have one of the last ash trees in Indiana right now.
Wow.
So I was working on some pruning with that because it got a little bit out of hand and was scratching our cars and stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
And then somebody planted a willow right next to our driveway, which...
Are you by a river?
No.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, it's not doing great.
I would imagine.
Yeah, and it like spills over where the cars drive through.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm gonna try to trim you as best as I can, but there's a good chance that it's just gonna have to come out because that's just not a good place to put a willow.
No, I'm surprised. I guess maybe they didn't know what willows were, or
I know they're like water trees or like lake
yeah,
river and lake trees. It was
yeah.
silly.
Okay, welcome Armando. Coming out of another meeting. When I saw MTG, I was like, Magic the Gathering. Like,
No.
whoa, where are you playing this weekend?
Nice.
Um, yeah, so yeah. So this week we're going to be doing another prompt. Or you don't have to do the prompts, you can do whatever you want, but if you like the prompts, you can do the prompts. We'll do 20 minutes of writing, 10 minutes revise again, group share, and then we're going to talk about our World Bible and how we can strengthen our World Bible so that we can communicate effectively. And yeah, that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. Is there any questions about that? Because otherwise we're just going to jump, or any questions about last week? Okay. That's cool. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to share the prompts now. And what I really want to encourage you all to do is when it comes to group sharing time, oops, I meant to get that separately. And I can't unshare. Okay, let me try that again. What I want to encourage us to do next time is to, or this time, is because I am like not great at processing what I hear. So if you could share your screen when it comes to, or share the link to your document when it comes to the group sharing time, I would really, really appreciate it. And yeah. So
What I did last week also, I just posted it on the Discord, if that
right.
helps people too.
Yep, and if you're comfortable with
that
that,
works
please
too.
do that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so either way, as long as like I can read it, that would be helpful to me. For me personally, that would be really helpful. Okay, so we're gonna give you 20 minutes to write. So we will see you at 3:28. I'll give you like a 5 or 10 minute heads up. And then you'll have 10 minutes to revise. And then we'll start sharing. So I will see you all in 20 minutes. In 20 minutes. All right. Enjoy and see you soon. Okay, just a heads up, you have 10 minutes left. See you soon. Hi, Lila, welcome. We are about 10 minutes into our writing. So if you need a prompt, we have 2 prompts at the top of chat. And you can go ahead and start with those, or you can write something else as long as it takes place within the world that we've been creating. If you need a reminder about that world, this is what we have so far. And we have about 5 minutes of writing left before we're going to start the revision. And we're also going to have Taylor speak a little bit about world building. So if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, you have about 30 seconds left. Please finish up your last sentences and we'll get started soon.
Did you just give them the 20-minute reminder?
Yeah, it's about to end. I'm counting down.
Okay,
7,
gotcha.
6, 5.
I saw you speaking, but I had my headphones out.
Oh, got you. Okay. Yep. All right. Time is up. So we just finished our 20 minutes of talking about, of writing. Taylor's going to talk briefly about some world building elements, and then we'll get to revision. So go ahead, Taylor.
Okay. I'm just reading this book right now, and I wanted to share like some of the cool world building that's in it with you guys while you guys finish up and we move on to some other things. So this is The Black Tongue Thief. That might be in reverse, but it's called The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. It's dark fantasy, so it's a little bit grim at times, but he has a
I
talent
think
for.
I lost Taylor.
Oh, is everybody still
Can you see
hearing
him
me?
now? He was talking about The Black Tongue Thief, which is a dark
And then
fantasy.
we lost you. Yeah,
Am I still lost?
you're good now.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. All right. I have terrible internet where I am, so it wouldn't be surprising to me at all. Yeah, so it's a little dark, a little grim, but he does a really good job of keeping like the hope and the heart in it to make it worth reading and worth caring about. One of the things that struck me immediately when I opened the book for the first time, besides a really great map, is this. Try to angle it so the light catches it a little better. This insert, which is a calendar. You don't often see calendars in books. You see maps in fantasy books a lot, but not necessarily calendars like this, which are very reminiscent of the old medieval calendars of medieval England, and talking about like with all of the little illustrations and stuff. So a couple of notes here that are really cool is this. So this is the months and the seasons in a year cycle. Looks like there are 10 months and 5 seasons. So there's the normal fall, summer, spring, and winter, and then there's also gloaming down here. I don't know what that is yet, but it sounds cool, and I'm eager to find out. The 10 seasons being ashers, high grass, flora, stuff like that, hoarfrost, hunters. So when I open this book and I see this, and I'm like, this tells me something really interesting about the world. And it has me very curious to know more. Down here is a month calendar, broken down into the days of the month and the weeks. What's interesting here is that it seems that each month is made up of 9 days, and each week is made up of 9 days, and each month 36 days. And they have different names for the days of the week in there, like Hearth Day, Knots Day, Witter's Day, stuff like that. So that's just a piece of the world building that's really fascinating to me, and something that really kind of set this apart when I was opening it up and kind of engaging with it for the first time. And throughout, he's proved that he has a very good idea of what like unique world building is going to be, and he works it in really well into the text. I never feel like it's being forced down my throat. I never feel like I'm being over explained to. It always feels relevant to something. However, it's very frequent. I would venture to say every chapter has at least 5 to 7 pieces of world building that it's thrown at me, and it's never felt like it's just out of place. So that's just if any of you are interested in picking it up, it's like brand new. I've been a fan of this author for a while, so I was like, I don't do this very often, but with him, I had the book ordered like the day it came out. So, and it's proved to be very, very good. I highly encourage a read if you're interested in some. I will warn. Like I said, it's technically classified as grimdark, so there are some really adult themes in it, and but it's always dealt with in kind of a almost a lighthearted way. I would call it dark humor at worst.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. That calendar looked really cool. So that was, what was the name of it again?
The Black Tongue Thief.
Black Tongue Thief. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. Yeah, but when you are, now we're gonna be going into the revisions of our works, or of what you've been writing so far. Lila says, makes me think about how we define time in our world and how that affects culture. Yeah, right. Like I love when people do stuff like that. It's like, whoa, like how does this work in my real life? And like how can I alter that? Sorry, I'm gonna go on a tangent. Let me not. So what I want you all to do now is to when you're revising, to look at what are the world building elements that you introduced in your short story. Can you build on them? Is it flowing well? Is there anything that maybe you didn't realize was inherent to our world that like you want to like revise or alter in some way? Those are things I want you to keep in mind while we're doing our revisions. You're gonna have 10 minutes to revise, and then we will meet up again. So for group share. So we'll talk to you soon, and happy writing. See you at 3:44.
So, sorry, Zybe, one more
Yeah.
time. We're doing 10 minutes of revision, and during this time, you want us to keep what in mind as we're revising?
Yeah, so for your world building, while you're going through it, like see, like, is there anything in the world building that you can build up more? Is there anything like maybe like a new idea that needs to be communicated more clearly, or maybe there's something that while you're reading, you're like, oh, like I wonder if that's actually if that's an idea I'm not questioning more. So like if it's something like I don't know, someone uses a fork and knife and you're like, do we actually use forks and knives in this world? Do we want to, or do we want to try something else?
Okay.
You know, just looking at your world building as you're revising and like thinking actively, is this all intentionally from this alternate world?
Cool, thank you.
I should have mentioned something in the first. You guys can still keep revising. I'll just ramble for a second. I should have mentioned this when we started the initial writing process, but to remember your brackets as a very useful tool for coming back to, you say, for example, the knife and fork. If you knew that you wanted to put some unique world building in there, but you weren't sure what it was at the moment, you didn't want to lose your momentum, you would just like in brackets put weird knife and fork and then move on. And then in revisions, you would come back to it and say, okay, now what is this weird knife and fork that I'm working with?
Yeah, same thing if you don't have a name for something. Like I know that sometimes I will literally just put protagonist in my writing when like I don't have a name for a protagonist, and I'll just be like, okay, well, I'll get to it eventually. And then I like keep writing the scene. So
yeah.
All right, happy revising. Just a heads up, you have about 3 minutes left. Okay, I hope you all are finishing up the last revisions. Time is up. Okay, so now we are going to do our group share. Again, really appreciate it if you could either drop your writing in the writing section of the, what is this thing called? Discord, or send us a link to your Google Doc. Either way, it works. Is there anyone who would like to go first? Oh, no takers?
I guess I'll go again first.
Oh, are you sure? Okay.
All right, let's see. Okay, so I did the hurricane approaching prompt with the bird person and asking for a mermaid for help. I didn't quite get to the help part, but at least had sort of like the introductory bit. He lands with a soft thud against the rock floor, the overhead cliff providing some coverage from the pelting rain and shifting winds. This is no good. He looks himself over, his feathers and skin shivering involuntarily at the unwelcome wetness. Looking out beyond his refuge, the palms are starting to bend to the water and wind. This storm rolled in faster than he could predict. He'd have to wait it out. As he takes in the rest of his surroundings, he notices the rock tunnels further inward. Unevenly, but definitely traversable. Looking over his shoulder at the raging storm, he ventures further. Within, light dims further, and his eyes take a moment to adjust. He'd half expected some sort of back exit, maybe through the mountain as to expedite his way home even through the storm. No such suerte, however. The tunnel only gave way to a glistening pool of water. It provided him with some light, which was comforting for the time being. Looking into his pouch, he found only a day's worth of rations. The storm outside looked like it would last 3 days, so he had to improvise if he was going to wait the storm within. Approaching the water, he looked into the stillness to see if there was any manner of fish within. Instead, he was startled by someone looking back at him. Out of the lake peeked out a head, and then a human torso, much like his, though it had a green hue to it, a mermaid. You're the first one here in a while. I'm sorry to intrude. The weather drove me in while I was out scouting. Scouting for what? The mermaid inquired, not much interested in his predicament with the weather. I'm a mapper. I was hoping to update my village's maps after the last shift, he explained. By now, he was crouched a few feet away from the shores of the lake. In this position, he could make better eye contact with the mermaid, whom hadn't stopped scrutinizing him. There was silence for a moment until, "What's your name?" the mermaid inquired further, pushing aside their hair away from their face. "Prele," he answered shyly, having never met a mermaid. They usually dwelled in the lakes, and his village was nowhere near any of the lakes, just near one of the main streams of the island. "I'm Driana. This is my lake. It's a very nice lake. What causes it to glow? There's blue amber encrusted in the rocks. The glow you see is them reflecting each other." Let's browse it that. And it is
Okay.
on the Discord if anybody wants to actually read it.
Yeah, I was literally reading it as you were reading it. Thank you. Okay, so I like that we got a sense of what the mermaid looked like. Especially like seeing that they had a green hue. That was pretty cool. I did want to know more about what the bird person looked like. And if there was like a name for that kind of creature. Maybe like a bird. Oh, I guess bird person could, I don't know. But so that, yeah. I like the idea of the glowing Larimar. I think that's really beautiful. Yeah. Taylor, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. You accomplished 4 world building tasks in this short piece, which is fantastic. You give some hint at what our protagonist is, or what our main character is, and with there being feathers and that he flies in. Get the mermaid and some description of her. You get this idea, you get the Larimar stones, crystals glowing in the lake, and you also get the fact that his people require some sort of cartography, like constant updating cartography in order to map the land, because it's constantly shifting, which is really interesting. It kind of takes it talks about it, you can talk about careers in this way. Cartographers in our world, they're important. They've been more important in the past, but ultimately, it's one of those careers that eventually they're not necessarily all needed as much anymore. But in this society, with some sort of geographical shifting going on, a cartographer is a very valuable person in perhaps even a well-to-do person. That job might get a lot more payment or remuneration for it, which is really interesting to me and could be expanded upon later. Here is, you've done what you needed to do here in this, which, while I am interested in learning more about the bird people, I'm not sure that you actually could have feasibly accomplished a ton more here with the context that you
That's
provided.
fair.
However, the mermaid could have said something. She could have commented on like the color. Perhaps he's an odd color or a unique color. So she's never seen names his people with this color plumage. That would have been an option for kind of describing the way he looks or giving a little bit more information. Solid piece, solid start. I think it's great.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on this ship. That actually is really, really cool. Now that Taylor mentioned, I'm like, whoa, yeah, like that makes sense to be like a really important part of the world. And that's like a nice detail to have of like, you have to keep updating the maps because the island is just literally moving. That's really cool. So anyone else want to comment on this story?
Yeah, I think I think it just leaves me with a lot of curiosity just to hear more about this this place that this bird mapper has not been to and got lost in, you know, and meeting this mermaid creature. And so how long has the mermaid creature not interacted with other creatures, right? You know, so that just seems a lot, you know, very interesting to learn more about that, you know, and the mystery of this other place. And I think one thing just based on sort of our world building, I know that these stones, like the blue amber and the Larimar and things like that are becoming part of the world and recognizable by some of these creatures. And it seems like possibly maybe here in the lake, the bird mapper didn't recognize it as easily maybe as they would have recognized it elsewhere, you know what I mean, back, you know, on their island. So that's just thoughts that I have in my head, you know, and you know, so that I think that could go either way, right? So that's interesting of like how maybe it glows differently, a different color on the other island, you know, I don't know, you know, so or it doesn't glow over there. So is there, you know, is there a reason why it glows over here but it doesn't glow over there? So it's just, you know, thoughts and curiosities, you know, if anything. So I think it's really cool how you're working towards creating these, you know, possibilities, you know what I mean, of like mysteries being either solved or not, or why is that, you know, different from here, and all based on these interactions, which is cool.
Yeah, that's a good attention to detail. I didn't even see that. That's a good point. Anyone else want to speak up on this piece before we move on? Okay, who would like to go next?
I'll go ahead and jump in. I also put mine in Discord.
Okay, cool.
So just before I start reading, like the stuff that is the first sort of 3 lines, in a sense, is just kind of me working through what kind of bird song that's not actual bird song, or like onomatopoeic, I guess that's how you say it, maybe.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
So I don't know. So we'll just see. So and then the stuff in the brackets is kind of what Taylor's talking to. You know, and as I read, I'll probably just choose something. But still don't know what that is yet. And I worked with the party scene, yeah, like sort of celebration scene. Isa, Io, Ape. A plumage of feathers burst into the air, dancing down into the crowd. The feathers fall and slide off wings down to the vibrating ground, where talons kicking them back up into the air. Beaks drenched in red dust bounce up and down, the rhythm of the lizards slapping their tails on the turtle's shells, inviting the wings to lift and sway. Floyd could see the rainbow of feathers. I think rainbow ring of feathers. Can see the rainbow ring of feathers from her sand home. She wanted to rush through her teachings, but the elder Cotorra pushed a wind of gentle sternness at her. Flor presented her sand sparrows to the elder, and with lowered beak of approval, Flor rushed to the gathering. Flor loved these gatherings because not only did she eat her favorite delicacy, dulce, she got to dance among the cotorros, lifting her rings of curls towards the rainbow ring of feathers. That's how far I got.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Okay, so quick question. When I see her curls, so we're seeing that these are bird creatures that have hair. Is that correct?
So, the curls are Flor's curls.
Okay,
it
so
says
Flora is not a bird person.
she's not a bird person.
Okay.
She's kind
Gotcha.
of connected to to like the previous short piece that I wrote, where like Flor is like kind of like this more human kind of a
Got you.
being,
Right.
whereas like the cotorros are more of the bird like creatures, and I'm kind of like just imagine them being like a larger size, or I don't know yet, but they're more bird than they are anything else, and then they just do other things that work for this world,
Okay.
but Flor is human being like.
Cool. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. So I like okay, so now that I'm keeping that in mind, so I would like the idea of the rhythm of the lizards slapping their tails on the turtle shells, inviting the wings to lift and sway. I think that's like really like beautiful, and it like kind of reminds me of like I don't know, like going to Gaga festivals with like people in the parade, and so that was kind of like a nice way of connecting that feeling to your story. I don't know, I just thought that was really cool. Yeah, and I like that you're putting in something here to connect to Avichuela con Dulce.
Yeah, I was trying to think what that could be without like, because I understand like in our world we're trying to go away from human things, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I'm just trying to think about what could be a delicacy there, which goes more towards like what is available, like what's our nutrients and things that feed the creatures there, and what would Flor eat, possibly that she's adapted from the birds. So, but it's still like a delicacy. It's something that is like only for these gatherings that kind of gets put together,
Mm.
So yeah. So I don't know yet. Maybe it's just dulce. I don't know. A sweetness or something.
Uh-huh. Cool. Yeah, I like that. Anyone else want to speak up before I say more?
Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll say that I like how you're pushing further with the cotorros. And I'm wondering, like, it makes me think it's like, like the idea that Flor lives amongst them, or, has this sort of like close relationship with this particular species. So like, that makes me think it's like, are they shifters maybe? So some of them are more bird than person, but some others are like more person than bird, and sort of this like mix of their approach. And that seems really interesting. And yeah, and then the culinary approach to it to really bring, like literal flavor to the writing, that was really great.
One thing I thought about, admittedly, Zyvi asked me to come up with a prompt a while ago, and then today, just before the meeting, I was like, oh crap, I forgot to do it. So I threw this one together very quickly after looking at a Blu-ray case that reminded me of parties. But I thought about it later, or just after it, and I'm not a party guy in my normal life. I'm the wallflower that stands on the edge of it and hopes and can't wait till he gets home. But in terms of world building, parties are just like a treasure trove of opportunities. You've got food going on, you've got dancing going on, you've got lots of outfits going on, you've got language, potentially cultural language interactions. There's just so much that can be done with a party scene. So, and frankly, Armando did just that. What I like, some things I like right off the bat, you the three words that you use in the beginning are really evocative, and I think they work really well, especially to provide flavor. Whether I know what they are or not, which I don't know what they are, those three words accomplish a lot to give me an idea of the aesthetic that I'm looking at. There's a couple other things I really like. The just all the stuff to do with feathers and how you're kind of working with wind when it's when you say the elder Katora pushed a wind of gentle sternness at her, makes me think that they're using their feathers to project wind in a way to communicate with people, which is really interesting, and how that could be used in even greater effect. Yeah, I dig a lot of what's going on here. I think it's a great start and definitely something to expand upon.
Very fun. Yeah, and I'm also just gonna add the nice little detail of the beaks being drenched in red dust. Like, I just think it's like a good detail that is like slips in really easily, but it kind of like shows you like what are ways in which these kotoro, right? The kotoros are the bird peoples. The way that they can kind of dress up, you know, even if they don't, I mean, maybe they wear clothes, I don't know. But even if they don't wear clothes, like this is a way for them to dress up and like look good for the party, you know, like I think that's a really good detail. And how you have them kind of like their feathers are falling down and they're dancing. I just think I don't know, you have a lot of good details. I think both of you, Barbara and Armando, did a really good job of having a lot of depth of details that like are so natural that like I think I missed some of them on my first read, because like they are so naturally incorporated into the writing and into the story. So good job, because that's kind of like the point. So good job. All right, who wants to follow up those two?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
I always have problems. I'm going to try to link a Google Doc and see if it works for everyone.
Perfect. Opening. Yeah, that works. Thank you.
All right. So this is pretty easy, I guess, because it kind of continues with what I was starting last week. So I guess I just added on to that, and I'll start now. The Victory Parade managed to bring all the people together on the small island. It was one of the most anticipated events. The first stage of the Accords were now signed, and the prospect of peace was within their reach, left and right. Fleur noticed that some women who were soldiers from the Royal Guard had swapped their typical greens and blues for white and beige. The male soldiers were all in dark navy and blacks, a different tone from the typical orange and reds. Already she sensed the distinction between everyone. As she walked through in her bright white gown, she smelled the rotisserie chicken filling the air with all the aromatic spices. The delicious scent of blend of saffron, paprika, cumin, garlic, and delicious fresh oregano kept making her stomach rumble. The dancers were in bright blues and greens. She looked at her friends, putting their all into a synchronized choreography as their feet delicately touched the sand with every hop. The drums blared in the evening sky as the stars and the moon prepared for the time in center stage. Fleur noticed as the sun quickly dipped lower and lower, she noticed that the travelers had begun to arrive. Let us cheer our new friends, the president of the Botija, Marud, shouted from a massive table, which seated diplomats, decorated officers, and some of the travelers that were translators. Maru lifted his wine glass, and his left hand displayed all the amber crystals in his jewelry. Rings and bracelets glowed with several stones. He was a younger man in his 30s with dark skin and curly brown hair. They also dubbed him the wise one for preserving peace and not risking their people with the prospect of war. His enemies looked at him from the other side, all standing and wearing reds, and stood defiantly, a sign that they were not going to agree with which was expected of the mercenaries who had not trusted their government or leaders in centuries. The citizens cheered happily and praised their leaders and travelers. They were excited with the propaganda that was thrown at them. Peace, new technology, and more resources were part of Maru's campaign, but some of the younger people were wary and still had the reservations about this alliance with these travelers, who did not let anyone know where exactly they were from. Flora looked as the moon glowed and her friends continued to dance as the drums began to boom stronger than before. Then she heard the war cry from the mercenaries and other rebels. The clouds began to visit one another and merge as the trombones now began to play, mixed in with someone playing the guida. This is now a new wave of sounds Flora has not been accustomed to hearing, but something prompted her to look behind her where she could view the blue amber mountains. Another loud boom shook her, and this time it was Mother Nature blowing thunderbolts emanating from the mountains. One of the rebels shouted, and suddenly the guards all took out their weapons. She turned to see that the dancers had not stopped and wondered what compelled them to keep going. Curiosity made her move closer to where they were while the toasts continued in the cheering. Now the cheering turned to yelling as more of the people began to reveal themselves as dissenters. Marud seemed unfazed as his world slowly began to crumble, and then the travelers began to rise ominously. The one closest to the president raised his left hand. His light blue skin appeared pale now and seemed accentuated by the darkness. These menacing travelers towered over everyone else, easily reaching 7 to 8 feet. Their leader yelled in a mix of their language and ours. The last words out of their mouths made Flora's spine crawl as she stopped moving close to the dancers and stared. The closest traveler by her turned to look and gaze into her eyes. Large green eyes had turned red, burned, and she saw fangs. The struya, the only word she understood. The amber stone on her necklace began to glow and burned hot, now as she positioned herself to unleash her weapon.
Okay, so this, I like, again, how we're incorporating the magic of these stones. I thought it was like really interesting detail that he had these, what was it, the cup that had, or his glove that had the stones on his hands. And there's a lot going on in the beginning. I was a little bit confused about, I probably just have to reread it a few times, but the different colors, I think spending a little bit more time with each color with each group, so that it kind of sinks in more would be helpful. But I did like that you did have that detail between groups to show that like people publicly demonstrated their alliances, because that actually says a lot about any given culture. If people can kind of like, you know, outwardly show that and create those divisions. I like the idea of how these travelers, like, I was like, are these time travelers? And I was like, because they're talking about like, you know, they're talking about, you know, super technology. I'm like, oh, from the future, aren't they? And I was just kind of like getting excited there. And I liked that I don't know, I like these like physical details about them. Like they're taller than everyone else. It makes me wonder, like, is that an evolutionary difference or is this a species difference? I liked the way that people were not affected by the lightning as they kept dancing, kind of like showing a I don't know if it was like maybe like a trust in nature or just a trust in the way things are kind of thing, like a like feeling value over or cultural values over personal safety, which is kind of interesting detail. Kind of shows like a lot of depth there within the culture. The detail about propaganda was interesting as well, which, I mean, for such a short piece, it's hard to like really expand on that. I think if this was like a larger work, I would love to know more about like that propaganda. But I think that was pretty good for the links that we had. yeah, this had a lot of like really interesting details in it that I liked a lot. The one word she understood, destroya. Oh, that's, I would be shaking in my boots if that happened to me. I'd be like, wait a second, what's going on here? So that was pretty cool. And I'll head off there.
I'll say also just to bounce off of what Sadie was saying, yeah, like I think it was like a really interesting approach to a lot of like socio-political details. It definitely, I think, like in the beginning, and again, it might just be a matter of that we wrote in 20 minutes, and if you had a longer piece or just the rest of the context, it would be fine. But it definitely left me wondering more about, like, does this mean that the island is a large, like Botija, is it a republic, more like, what we would assimilate like Dominican Republic to be in Haiti? Or are we talking about like these sort of like separate species slash like tribal sort of societies that have decided to sort of like unite? And why are they uniting? Like, is it because they were at war, or they were just like, we can pull resources more easily that way? And then, like the idea of like, okay, like they're uniting, like is everybody uniting, or is there some sort of like some groups that were like, we're not really interested in uniting, and so everybody's just gonna keep to their side of the island? Like, that is always really interesting because there's so much that happens with like so many moving parts, and that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas, and it was because we have the time thing. A lot of things kept popping up, so I just tried to put in as much as I could.
I'm definitely jealous of your output here. um, this much in 20 minutes is probably unheard of for me. So I think that's awesome. There's a lot here to love, and I really like a lot of the details that I'm seeing. I have a soft spot for giants, so but not like absurdly tall giants, like just, let's go with this. This is the best way to describe it, the biblical giants, the 8 to 12 foot tall people. Like that's always been really interesting to me, and exploring that in something is, let's just face it, it's something I'm already doing. So I'm as I said, I've got a soft spot for them. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that this hints at, and I want to know more.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really dug the music. I mean, I love the, we're starting with the celebration, and it's like, and it turns dark, you know what I mean? And it's like, I want to stay in the celebration. But that's also like, I'm biased because I was like, I'm partying, in my writing. And I'm like, oh, you turn me dark. And it's like, oh, which is cool because at the same time, I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about two things: the dancers who kept dancing, which I'm really interested in. Like, I'm also interested in that question. Why do they keep dancing, right? While these things are happening, right? Are they aware? Are they like in a trance like state? Like, what's going on, right, with them? And then the music, the new sounds that Flor was like listening to and being like introduced to for the first time, and the guida being something where I was like, oh, okay, dope. Like, is that, I think as a like, I'm interested in like as a, I guess, a narrative transition into this now like dark, war that's being like, disrupting this party and this celebration, right? You know, so yeah, I'm just really interested in the how the music is playing and the dancers, and like what happens after, what happens right next. I mean, do the dancers keep dancing? Do they, even in like, as the war is erupting, I mean, so I'm just, yeah, I'm really like interested in that as all these other things are happening, around this, I mean, and the music and the sound, like how does that get affected by everything. So yeah, just really cool, really cool. Same thing with the giants and the word, the story. Yeah, it's like word.
Okay. So anyone else want to say anything before we move on to Lila? Okay. So Lila, I believe you're going to be reading to us from your notebook. So looking forward to it.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, sorry I'm not on I'm not on the platform just yet. And I was trying to catch up on the notes, so I don't have much, I don't think, written, but I feel like I'm playing around with like a lot of different ideas. So I wrote, our culture was shaped by the old calendar, but lately the younger cotorros had been resisting going out at all times of the night, ignoring the old cotorro the warnings. First started breaking curfew, or when they first started breaking curfew, they'd stay out all night, camped out at one spot, gliding, dancing, and eating from the palm tree. El teteo, they used to call it. Twirled and chirped till 7 a.m. and slowly glided back to the other side of the island, stopping at somewhere. I put it as like a random spot for a bite to eat, which always felt like the best idea at the time, but eventually would lead to inflammation and chronic disease. That blue moon, as they fell past Las Colinas, they could see all the plates shifting, the ground grumbling underneath. Fulanito guiding the formation. The wind started to whip and everyone could hear the whisper of their other Fulanito friend asking for help. Y la brisa brought un nuevo olorcito, un huracán. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna recap to make sure. So basically we have this, oh shoot. Hello. We have the Cotoros who are out beyond curfew. And then they are making their way back to town when the island is shifting. I think that's a really interesting detail of how like how it physically moves and how it makes me wonder, like, how do they get back home when things are literally moving? I think it's, I don't know, I just thought that was cool. Yeah. And I thought the curfew was interesting too. I guess like curfew makes sense if you're like on your way home and it's like night and you can't see, right? Like then how are you supposed to know where your village is? Like that's kind of, I was like, oh, whoa, like that is a good thing to keep in mind actually. So I like those aspects of it. Anyone else want to speak up on that?
I'll go. I actually thought it was pretty cool. Like, I know that when we were initially sort of just like putting ideas on, like at the very first couple of weeks, we were thinking about these like sort of like in real life events, like transforming them into this fantasy world. And I thought that like your elements translated really well into this sort of fantasy aspect of them, especially like this idea like that you like called it the teteo. Like I just thought that was so funny, but like it made me think. I was like, we hadn't considered that like the cotorros are based on like we were thinking about cotorras when we came up with them, but they're migratory. So do they actually migrate around the island, and especially in an island that changed shape? So how does that affect that? And this idea that they're that again, like bringing further sort of like depth into their society. Obviously, like I think that in the last couple of weeks we've had this opportunity to explore the cotorros further because we didn't necessarily do it on the first half of the class. But I think like this like great idea that like does this make them more animalistic, or does it really make them like more human, that for a reader, it might read as like, oh, like, we travel as humans, we move across states, or we move across countries. So what is that like in the realm of this island? So that's pretty great.
Yeah, to piggy off of that, it's like I appreciate like the meditative quality of it, even though like it seemed like there's some ominous thing happening as well. Again, like we don't know yet what happens outside of the curfew, right? In the dark. And this and that sense of like starting off with like there's the old cotorros, there's the new cotorros, right? The old cotorros go by the old calendar, the new cotorros go by what? What I mean? Like and that's cool that it's like, what's the new calendar? How does it, and what do these calendars and I'm guessing you were influenced somewhat by like what Taylor was showing right from that book, or like what do these old calendars refer to, right? And try to help us understand about this world and how time works. There you go, you just said it. How we track time, right? But like, right, if time, how does time work in a place that changes, right? Is like it's shifting. Like there's certain changes in the cosmos that we have no idea. We think it works like this, and we say billions of years ago, but we're like, we don't know what the hell that means. Like we have no concept of what that means, right? Of like gas changing and stars changing and these things becoming, dead and supernovas and all this. We have no idea. Like we try to understand how we understand time, but we have no sense of it. So I feel like you're playing at this place of like an island that changes, and time and change kind of go together, but how do they work here? So I'm just sort of left with, the sense of like, oh, cool, like a sense of feeling like something different works here, right? Of how these things work, and how these young cotorros are sort of experiencing these things, for them. That maybe is different from the old heads, right? We're like, yeah, we did it differently over here, but y'all doing it this way, So I'm really interested to see, if you decide to like keep going towards that place of like creating a sense of time for us, that's like outside of our understanding, that works with the island that shapes itself, all the time. So that's really cool.
Okay, would anyone like to make some final comments for Lila's story? Okay, we are going to go ahead and move on to the last section. We were going to also do an activity, but I think we're gonna move that to next week. So if Taylor, you could please speak on communicating ideas effectively in the World Bible.
Yeah, so one thing we noticed while looking at the World Bible, and something that we didn't think about that we would need to talk about, but it makes perfect sense that we would, is considering how somebody who wasn't a part of this this process, these world building exercises would be able to understand what we've built so far, what has existed, what are kind of the key elements. And one key piece with working with a World Bible and putting those together is considering those individuals who are going to be coming in, reading it not necessarily for entertainment, but for information and learning how to work with the world that's been built. So this is kind of a complicated topic to to teach. Certainly a complicated topic to teach in around 5 minutes. But
Sorry.
No. This was invaluable time, and I don't want to take away from that. I'm just expressing that it's this is something that takes practice, and it's not one of those things that I can necessarily give like 10 tips toward better communication for this, but I can give a
Right.
couple of examples and a couple of thoughts. You want to think about this thing as you're writing a textbook. You're writing a textbook for this world. The language needs to be plain and clear. It needs to not be in note form. It should be in paragraph form. It should be in prose, as in uh, explaining what's going on. In terms of the World Bible itself, it should be expository, so it's divorced from any context of story. This helps you to kind of communicate the ideas in the most clear and effective way. If you think it's going to be boring, it's not, because it's going to be interesting content. I pulled a couple of examples from my bookshelves of how this kind of looks at most, and I told Ivy that I couldn't get this out of my bookshelf because it's so huge, but I did it anyway because I was excited about it. So this book is the World of Ice and Fire. It's essentially the World Bible written by other people for the Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire thing. So this is a quality that we're not necessarily going to get into necessarily, just because there are pretty pictures and lots of layout and stuff like that. But essentially, this is a textbook on the world of Game of Thrones. And this is kind of what you're shooting for when you're looking at a World Bible, or at least the kind of general ideas presented there on this section for like Viserys the First. It says things like, after the long and peaceful reign of Jaehaerys the First, Viserys inherited a secure throne, a full treasury, and a legacy of goodwill that his grandfather had cultivated over 50 years. House Targaryen was never again so powerful as it was in Viserys' reign. More princes and princesses of the blood existed than any other time since the Doom, and there were never so many dragons at one time as there were in the years 103 AC to 129 AC. It's information. It's information about the world, about the history, about this individual, about their rulership. The doom of Valyria. With the destruction of the Rhoynar, Valyria soon achieved complete domination of the western half of Essos, from the Narrow Sea to Slaver's Bay, and from the Summer Sea to the Shivering Sea. Slaves poured into the freehold and were quickly dispatched beneath the 14 flames to mine the precious gold and silver the freeholders loved so well. It's written in clear, plain prose, meant to explain what's going on. Another example, this is not necessarily world building, but it is kind of a good way to think about the way you would do these things. But my wife is a pharmacist, and one of her graduation gifts from her mother was this lost book of herbal remedies. And it is essentially filled with things that you could find in the woods, in your garden, and kind of explaining what those things are and what they might be used for and how to prepare them. Some various remedies. Each section has, so for example, butterbur, Arctic sweet colt's foot. Butterbur or sweet colt's foot is a plant that grows in moist areas throughout the northern hemisphere. The name butterbur reportedly came about because the leaves were used to wrap butter for keeping. It's that kind of a thing. Very plain language, very clear language, simply meant to explain and get the ideas of the world through to a person who hasn't been introduced to the world outside of a narrative. So I don't necessarily have, like Zyvi said, we were going to do an exercise here. What I can say is that if you feel the draw to it all throughout the next week, go into the World Bible, find a piece that we've talked about, a piece that we've worked with, and expand upon it and write it in a way that is clear and concise, but also gives plenty of details and plenty of information about it. What you could do if you didn't want to like write something in and like say this is going to be exactly what it is, you could change your setting to suggesting and write it in that way, and it will show up in colored letters, and we can look those over later and decide whether we like it or not, and then accept or reject it, or amend it if we want to do that. This isn't a homework assignment. This is just if you feel like doing it sometime throughout the week, it's a good way to exercise, because you'll often get ideas while you're working on this, and you'll often get things that might expand upon the ideas that were set out before. Since we don't necessarily have time during the session, it's just if you want to throughout the week, this is a good way to exercise what we're working on and a good way to expand upon the world. And if you want to work on the world building, a lot of times I've got, 2 pages of notes from a world, and I'm like, you know what, my brain doesn't have energy to come up with new ideas right now, so I'm going to get them down in a communicatable way. I'll end up having new ideas and new expansions upon the things while I'm working on that. So everything continues the progress of the world building. Are there any questions about any of that? If you do have any questions about the week, feel free to ask me, or Zyvi. There's no, you can, yeah, pretty much.
We're in the Discord.
Yeah.
You could also email us. It's all good.
Yep.
So we are going to be finishing up now. I do want to say really quickly, just to remember that this World Bible is hopefully going to be helping us develop a guide for submissions for an anthology project. So you want to think about how, if I were to read this, knowing nothing about the world, would I be able to understand it enough to write in it, right? So and kind of like how Armando was talking about the consistency of something, right? So like, is there enough detail here that we can be consistent between writers? Or are we kind of like not knowing enough about the world that we can have consistency? Thinking in terms of that, like how clearly are we presenting the ideas, basically. Those are just something that I want us to consider. Again, I think next week is going to be our last week. Is that correct? Or do we have 2 more weeks? Hold on, let me double check.
Next week is our last.
Okay. Oh, no, we have 2 more weeks. Next week is week 5, and then the week after is week 6. Right.
Next week is also Father's Day, just a reminder.
Oh, okay. So it is the last week, because I remember that being like a funny point. Okay. Yeah. So that was another thing we wanted to ask is, do we want to meet up on Father's Day, or if we want to meet up on Saturday instead? Please let us know. We will, and then we will update you all both through email and through the Discord, whichever is better. So I'll make a poll for that today, right after this. And yeah, I see someone that says something in chat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so then, yeah, I think we'll probably end up changing it to Saturday instead. But yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat and let everyone do that thing. So
Cool. I was gonna say if it is Saturday,
yes,
that's the 19th.
yes. Oh, it's also Juneteenth, isn't it?
Juneteenth, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I get it. Like if folks, like I'm in the West Coast, so like I have no fathers here for me to celebrate with. It's all going to be virtual, so I'm pretty easy. But if I guess we do Saturday, would it be this? My question: would it be the same time, or is it possible to do earlier? Which I guess will still be earlier for y'all, or whoever's in the East Coast. So like, as early as, for example, like 9 o'clock for me, which would be East Coast is like, or EST would be like 12.
Okay.
So that's just a question I'm floating out there. If we do Saturday.
Right. I'm wondering now if it would be better to just push it back a weekend. Would that be better? for everyone? I don't know. Show of hands, who would like to do the weekend after instead? That
That's
being a
fine with
Sunday.
me. I can't do
I can
Father's
roll.
Day, not because I'm necessarily convinced of Father's Day, but I can't do it because I've got a thing I got to be at.
Okay. Nunez and Barbara, is the weekend after good for you too?
I could do the weekend after, so the Sunday or like Saturday earlier, so the 19th earlier.
Okay. And Nunez, how do you feel about that? Sorry if I'm like calling you by your last name or something. I hope that's not weird.
I'm sorry. Oh no, my first name's Ange.
Okay, Anne.
But
Okay.
anything works for me.
Okay, cool. Then I'm gonna send a message through Discord and email about shifting it to the weekend after. And yeah, so we'll be working on this, what's it called? Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. We'll be working on the, oh, I'm just going to showing you all of my, let me just stop sharing my screen. So, yeah, so I'm gonna be let's try and work on it during whenever you're free, and also we'll be doing starting off with that in the as an exercise next time, as well as doing more writing prompts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good week, guys.
night.
Have a good week, guys.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. Sorry, I know that I feel like that was maybe
Go ahead
a
and end the
little
recording.
bit tough. Oh, sorry. Hello?
Go ahead and end the recording.
Oh, let me just